Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Ms. Greenfield?
Here.
Mr. Hammond?
Here.
Mr. O'Day?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Mrs. Mara?
Here.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Burnsville News, the Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 11th, 2018. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we have a couple of presentations tonight. Excuse, I might lose my voice here, so I'm just a little scratchy, but I'll hang in there. We have from RideWise, Christine, why don't you tell us who's here? Because this was your project.
So Donna Allison is here, and there's a presentation if anyone wants to follow along with her on, she'll hand them out. So many of you earlier in the year may have walked through town and seen signs that said heads up, phones down, use your crosswalks, and that campaign was conducted by this organization called RideWise. So tonight's presentation is a summary of the findings of that campaign, and
So good evening. Thank you for inviting us. As Christine mentioned, my name is Donna Allison. I'm the Executive Director of RideWise. We're an organization of transportation advocacy group based out of Bridgewater. Excuse the cough drop. I've got whatever thing's going around with laryngitis and a cough. Our purpose here tonight is to present the outcome of the Street Smart campaign that we conducted last fall, and to request the council to consider having a second campaign next fall as a follow-up. So Street Smart is a public education, awareness, and behavioral change campaign that was developed by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. It goes by NJTPA. I'm sorry my back is to get to really know where I can stand. NJTPA is one of our funding partners, and they fund us to conduct Street Smart campaigns in municipalities throughout Somerset County. And the goal of Street Smart is to promote safe travel behavior through education and enforcement of pedestrian safety and motor vehicle laws. And the campaign was developed by NJTPA in response to New Jersey having nearly double the national average of pedestrian fatalities at 24%, and the national average is 14%.
Wow.
So the goals of the program are to change behavior, to educate motorists and pedestrians about the responsibilities of using the road, and to increase enforcement of pedestrian safety laws and roadway awareness. So the campaign was a collaborative effort that was led by RideWise with assistance from the municipality, law enforcement, and the business community. It's a 4-week campaign coupled with 2 weeks of pre-campaign activity that we conduct, and then 2 weeks of post-campaign activity before we prepare the final report. And the pre-campaign activity is a community survey and intersection observations. The campaign consists of education, outreach, and enforcement done by the police. And the post-campaign is a follow-up community survey along with post-campaign observations so that we can see if there's been any change in pedestrian or driver behavior during the course of the 2 observations. And then we prepare a final report, which is actually at the Borough's website right now, and also at the RideWise website, which is www.ridewise.org. So we asked the police and the council to consider Burnsville for a campaign because of the high pedestrian crash rate, and given that there was a walkable downtown, and there was significant community interest. Sorry, a number of the slides that they'll already projecting them. Page 6 of the packet shows that between 2006 and 2018, there were over 1,900 vehicle crashes, and 26 were involving vehicles and pedestrians. The majority of them took place along Morristown Road, Route 202. So with input from the police, there were 3 target intersections that were chosen, and these were unsignalized intersections in town. The first one was at Minebrook Road and Claremont Road. The second one was Minebrook Road by the Burnsville Print Center. And the third one was Morristown Road by the Roselle Bank. So what we did is we conducted pre-campaign observations and post-campaign observations at each of these three intersections where we looked at pedestrian and driver behavior. So on those days, you may have seen Sarah Cap and I out there with clipboards and counters and chairs, and we had a camera set up so that we could actually count the number of vehicles and pedestrians that went through those intersections at the time. And what we tried to do is do these pre and post intersections on the same day and same time to control for any kind of variables that may occur, to keep everything consistent. So if you look at page 8, you'll see that we start with the pedestrian behavior. And we were happy to see that between the pre and the post campaign, the percentage of pedestrians using the crosswalk increased from 44% to 65%. We saw a reduction in the percentage of pedestrians deviating from the crosswalk. That's where they sort of start out the crosswalk and then they never really follow through or follow it all the way from one end of the street or the other. So we saw a reduction in the number of pedestrians deviating from 32% to 2%. And we saw an increase in the number of pedestrians who crossed mid-block, unfortunately, and no change in the number of pedestrians who were texting or on the phone. With our driver activity, we did see drivers texting and on the phone. We saw a slight decrease between the pre and the post campaign. We saw a decrease in the number of drivers who stopped for pedestrians in the crosswalk when turning. And we saw an increase in the number of drivers who did not stop for pedestrians when turning. And then in terms of the number of drivers who stopped and stayed stopped, we saw an increase, just going from 61% to 88%. And then drivers who did not stop and stay stopped decreased from 39% to 12% between the pre and post at that specific intersection. And as you can see, the two observations were done on Monday, September 25th from 11 to 2, and Monday, November 19th from 11 to 2. On the next page, page 9, is the observations for the Minebrook Road at the Print Center. And we saw a good increase in the number of pedestrians using the crosswalk between the pre and the post campaign. Percentage increase from 47% to 74%. Fortunately, we saw a bit of an increase in the number of pedestrians, or percentage of pedestrians texting on the phone. We saw a nice decrease in the number of pedestrians deviating from the crosswalk, went from 70% to 10%. And we saw a decrease in the number of pedestrians crossing mid-block, which went from 30% to 16%. Saw a slight increase in the number of drivers texting on the phone. And then the best increase in behavior that we saw was the number of drivers stopping and staying a stop, were increased from 66% to 100%, and the number of drivers that did not stop and stay stopped went from 33% to 0%. So we saw the best overall improvement at this specific intersection. The campaign observations were September 26th from 11 to 2. Tuesday the 20th from 11 to 1. I did say earlier that we tried to do it on the same day at the same time, but that was a week, if you recall, it was very, very cold, and Sarah Kaplan and I could only stay out there for about 2 hours. We were frozen, and given the weather that week, that was actually the best day where there was going to be no precipitation and having to keep people inside. So it doesn't always happen the way we plan when we do the pre and post observations. So the third intersection at Roselle Bank was significant because this is where many of the students from Burnsville High Schools cross after school. So if you notice, we did those observations from 2 to 4 in the afternoon, 2 to 4:30 and 2 to 4. Again, second day, it was just freezing, we just couldn't stay out there anymore. But many of the students at this intersection did very well. We did see an increase in them using the crosswalk between the pre and the post, from 72% to 86%. We did see some texting on the phone. We think the second time that we were there, they sort of knew why we were there, so they probably cited their phones when they walked by us because we saw a decrease from 16% to 3%. We saw a decrease in the number of students deviating from the crosswalk from 17% to 9%. And we saw a decrease in students crossing mid-block from 10% to 5%. Again, when they know they're being watched, usually, behavior improves. And we did see some drivers texting and on the phone at this specific intersection, but we saw a decrease from 4% to 2%. And then the number of drivers that stopped in state stop increased from 63% to 76%. And the number of drivers that did not stop declined from 37% to 24%. So during the 4 weeks of the enforcement, we had 22 businesses distributing safety messaging as part of the campaign. The police dedicated 105 man-hours to enforcement, and this was in addition to their regular patrol time. They issued 5 warnings and 1 summons. Drivewise posted 47 social media alerts, which were also retweeted by many businesses in Bernardsville. We issued 2 media alerts, and then we provided some pedestrian safety education at Bernards High School, Bedwell Elementary, and the School of St. Elizabeth. And 143 individuals who lived and worked in Bernardsville took the pre-campaign, and 130 individuals took the post-campaign. So we saw very good participation from businesses. We had good community awareness, and overall it was a very well-conducted campaign. We were happy with the input we got from the police and from businesses. But, when the education stops and the reminder stops, the activity tends to fall back to where it was before we started doing the campaign. So with that reason, we'd like to do a follow-up campaign, if at all possible, next fall to sort of keep the momentum going and to serve as a reminder that pedestrian safety and education, it's not a one-time thing. It needs to happen as an ongoing thing because all the infrastructure and roadway improvements don't really help people understand the need for safety when it comes to crossing the street. And those safety improvements and infrastructure changes don't often address the education part, which is so vital. So I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. If not, I thank you for your time.
Donna?
Yep.
Oh, I'll ask you a question. Do you find it would be helpful to do it more than once a year, or is that kind of your standard that you see a difference if even just doing it once a year repeatedly?
It varies from campaign to campaign. In other campaigns that we've done, we've not seen the level of improvement that we've seen in Borough.
Oh,
so
well, that's
it
good.
does vary.
Yeah.
What was that?
24%.
Well, no, there was a fatality number you gave. Was that a pedestrian fatality?
Yes, those are pedestrian fatalities. It's on page 2 in the presentation at the bottom. 24% is New Jersey's pedestrian fatality rate, which is nearly double
That's
the
New
national
Jersey.
average of 14%. And that's why this campaign was created by NJTPA to address the educational component.
But
That's
that varies
pretty
county
high.
by county and area by area, depending
Yeah.
on the speed
That's-
of the roads.
That's
and that kind of
overall
thing.
New Jersey, that's not this area, of course.
Okay, that's misunderstood.
I think it's page 6, you statistics for the town, 1,908 crashes, 26 involving vehicles and pedestrians, 1.36%. Is that, what's the average for the county or something like that? What's the average for the county or something like this? Is this high or low, this number?
Any fatality, any vehicle, and
Is
pedestrian
high.
conflict
I don't think this
is
is
high.
fatality, it's just
No, they're
accident.
not fatalities, they're just conflicts. There could have been severe injuries, there could have been minor injuries, but no, they're not fatalities, they're just when
But this
vehicles-
percentage, is this representative of the county? Was this low or is this high? Do you know?
It depends on the area. There are other campaigns that we've done where the rate has been higher.
Okay,
There are some where it's been lower.
thank you.
Yeah, I think any amount is too many. Any other questions? Jeff?
So, of the 47 incidents that occurred between 2006 and 2017, that they said some certain percentage were moderate injuries. So I'm assuming that none of them were severe then, because you didn't mention that, which is a good thing. But the question I had, since it seemed to be clustered around 2 locations, Olcott Square, I'm looking at the map on page 4, and the intersection where Morristown Road meets Finley Avenue. So 2 questions. One is, how much of this is related to left-hand turns, do we know? And the other question I had was, do we have any idea how much of this is related to visibility? Do we know anything about time of day for those 47 incidents?
the metric show that
The
information?
metric does show that. I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but I know that visibility and like weather conditions is something that the metric shows. So that's always something that we can look more.
If it's something related, if it's evening time, I mean, maybe part of the campaign might be to get people to use reflectors more.
I think we may have
I know
pointed
we were
that out.
actually, Councilman Downey, you and I were talking a little bit earlier about how many times we've seen bicyclists by the side of the road that are wearing all dark clothes, and you just realize you just missed them. It's just, they're hard to see on a dark night.
I think we may have broken it out in a little bit more detail in the final report with regard to the number of incidents, so that maybe in the report that's
Okay.
online.
Will you do different intersections at the next one or the
That
same
would-
ones?
That would be the case, yeah. There
Okay.
would be other intersections, perhaps down by the ShopRite
Right.
and locations
Yeah,
in that
that's-
area
uh-huh.
that we would look at.
Okay, good. Yeah, Melanie?
I think you also need to educate people that it's not just the drivers, it's the pedestrians too. Because today I was driving through town and I saw 3 kids running right through the middle of town, catty-cornered, not even in the sidewalks, hysterically laughing, running through town. And I often see people going across the crosswalk on their bicycles and not getting off and walking their bicycles across like that's what the law says to do. So, I mean, I think that's partly part of the problem.
Yeah, it's not just about driver activity and behavior, it's residential pedestrians.
Yeah,
It's,
and the
people
texting
doing
on the
this, just
phone,
walking.
yeah.
Yeah.
The full report actually contains a list of recommendations, and pedestrian education is on that list. Pedestrian activated signs and lights are on that list. So if you want to read the full report, the condensed version that Donna just presented is kind of a shorter version, but the full report is on RideWide's website as well as Burnsville's website. But it lists all the efforts that were made by the police department, by all the businesses that agreed to post signage and give out cup holders and get that message through to people about, you're responsible too for keeping
Yeah, because I
yourself
see
safe.
people just walk out into the road thinking that it's the law, the cars have to stop. And by that point, sometimes the cars can't stop.
And one of the key recommendations too was that there are 2 spots in town, and I'm sure everyone here can attest to, in front of Bernard's Inn, which is right next to this
To the walkway,
crosswalk,
yeah.
that people just kind of want to take that shortcut. And if you can be safe about it, I mean, I get that. But if you really, you don't want to be going out into traffic and there's no crosswalk, and that's one of the messages that this got across based on the observations. I think if we do another campaign in a different spot, like we talked about ShopRite, and I would definitely, ask the chief for input as well as your guys about, because they did all the legwork when it came to educating, and I got a lot of feedback from residents about the education portion of it, and he had cards that he gave out, and, it wasn't like, always a summons, obviously, but educating, like, mainly the educating was to pedestrians.
Right.
And, everybody has to play a part in that safety.
So the crosswalk you're talking about from Bernard's Inn,
There is
Is-
It's over by the Prince Center more.
it's horrible. 2 steps, you're in the traffic. I don't know why they did these bump outs when they redid the downtown sidewalks, but if somebody's around when it's time to do downtown again, I would suggest to get rid of the bump outs. It's
Well, we
dangerous.
discussed,
2 steps, right after you're in traffic. Yeah.
I think one of the problems there is the visibility. So if you, again, in the full report, there's a great picture of a truck stop there, right, where it's blocking visibility, and that is definitely part of it. So that crosswalk, if you're standing where you should be standing to cross, there's a parked car blocking you. So
So a lot of times the cars don't stop because they don't see the people
Yeah.
on the side of the road.
Which is why the pedestrian has to also be alert.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Donna. This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Christine, for spearheading this. It was a good project.
It's worth
Is it
pointing out
okay
that
if we do another campaign?
Absolutely. Anybody have a problem with another campaign? No, I think we're good with
So
that.
then the chief and I, and we'll get in touch with Donna about a fall
In
to
the fall.
coincide with school opening.
Yeah,
Can I clarify, this actually was at no cost to the borough, right? Ridewise did this for us? And so
Yeah.
the fall one as well, because I mean, I think that's also a huge benefit. We should recognize the effort that Ridewise is putting together to do this for us at no cost to the borough.
Yep.
But was this the police overtime on this? Ken?
No.
No?
This was all done during our regular scheduled hours using our squad personnel as well.
That's great.
To coordinate
Yeah.
this with them. And I just want to say to your folks that thank you, they did a great job. And, you know, they really, I'll tell you where they really came in was with the community engagement part, because they were able to get out and get into the schools. They did go to the schools and do some educational programs in the schools to talk to students about, you know, pedestrian safety and things like that we don't always have time to do anymore. So it was good to work with you and get this done. Thank you.
great. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin, for sharing that. All right. Ed, I saw Ed. English? Where'd he go?
He was here.
Wasn't he here?
Was your
Oh, okay.
probably be back.
All right. In the meantime, I will read this proclamation for National Donate Life Month. Whereas realizing the urgent need for organ and tissue donors across the country, the National Donate Life Month observance promotes a greater understanding about the life-saving benefits of donation and transplantation. Moreover, the need is increasing. New Jersey Sharing Network is committed to addressing that need through increased awareness. And whereas the transplantation of organs and tissue is a miracle of modern medicine made possible through the compassion of organ and tissue donors, enabling surgeons to save thousands of lives every year. One organ donor can save 8 lives, and one tissue donor can restore health to over 75 others. People of all ages, ethnic backgrounds, and religions are touched by donation and by the serious shortage of organ donors that exists. Currently, there are nearly 4,000 New Jersey residents and 115,000 Americans awaiting life-saving transplant operations. And whereas every capable person should support this vital effort by registering as an organ and tissue donor, making their family aware of their wishes, and being willing to give the precious gift of health, sight, and life to people in need. And whereas registering as an organ and tissue donor at a local motor vehicle agency or online at www.njsharingnetwork.org signifies our fundamental human responsibility to help others. And whereas, as mayor of the Borough of Bernardsville, I recognize National Donate Life Month as an opportunity to join NJ Sharing Network in its life-saving mission. Now, therefore, I, Mary Jane Canoes, mayor of the Borough of Bernardsville, do hereby proclaim April as Donate Life Month in Bernardsville, New Jersey, and I urge all residents to join me in promoting organ and tissue donor education throughout National Donate Life Month. Okay? All right. He's back. Ed, you're up. Tell us about...
I thought it was April 6th. Sorry, I was able to make copies upstairs. I didn't wreck anything. I'm sure I didn't. Anyway, here's the copy. Those are mine. I'll have to go through it. We can hand out these copies. Thank you. So this is the Farmers Market again. I just really resubmitted. It's the 25th year, so some of you people are familiar with it. And we will begin on June 8th and continue to November 23rd. That's a little longer than in the past, but some of the farmers, especially some of the newer ones, think they can help, and they also be good for the borough if they continue right before Thanksgiving. It's not going to interfere with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a little later this year. So what I have is the letter, which hopefully you'll agree to and sign. And the backup is really, these are the farmers. I'm going to give more of this to Anthony, so it's a little rushed because I thought it was the 6th. But here are the list of all the farmers from before. These are long-time participants, and that's the way it's been positioned. And the pop-up vendors come 1, 4, 5, some of them come more often, they want to come more often, but this gives variety to the market and variety to the borough for the farmer's market. There's some interesting ones in here we just got last year, like Green Tree Woodworks. He's actually from Burnsville. He makes handcrafted sustainable kitchenware. So I won't go into them, but you can look at it, hopefully you'll approve it. And then this year, mainly because of Bedminster, who had a banner up across 202, we applied for a banner last year, but it was too late. Hopefully we applied for the banner in time this year. Anthony's been helping a lot, and so has Jeff. But I haven't heard anything. I'm sorry, you'll see in there, there's an approved, not an approved, acknowledgement of our application, and they still have to approve it, and we pay $35 more. And the banner will be similar to I don't know if anyone remembers the A-frame signs we had up advertising the market, and so it'll be a similar style this year. And I'm going to hopefully go over with Jeff, and maybe you can help me, because we still haven't found Verizon still doesn't answer us. I don't know what's going on. But, Verizon,
To use
put
their
up a
polls?
banner, you need 2 poles.
Yeah.
One pole belongs to the borough, the other pole belongs to Verizon, and so far, we haven't gotten a response from them. So I hope it works. So that's it. If anyone has any questions, yeah, Jack.
So, looking at the banner.
No pickles this year.
Sorry?
No pickles.
Huh? Looking at the banner, it doesn't say anything about the 25th anniversary. There was no way.
Well,
I understand the banner, you've got limited space here, but I was wondering whether, since you have what looks like a cornucopia on both sides, could you replace one of them with a 25th anniversary? It seems like that would be something worth noting, no?
But then you can't
Then you
reuse
can't
it.
reuse it.
well, okay, so
Good point, okay. Well,
remember,
you may not be able to read it
safety
now,
first
change the
here.
dates.
We'd like to get the 25th in there, but safety first. So if you think it's going to be a distraction when you're going by and reading, so 25 farmers market, it may be a little too much. That's the advice I've been given. We can try it and ask again. Keep it as simple as possible for safety's sake. And having it in the corners that's where the banner gets stretched, so that it might not be that readable, might make it a little harder to read, and so we stay away from it. But I could ask them again.
I don't know how much more distraction it would be than the Saturdays 9 to 1, that people are reading that too. But if you don't put it on the banner, is there someplace else on site that would advertise that this is the 25th anniversary?
Yeah, for sure. And in the advertising that we have normally been doing, and we've been doing a lot, since Bedminster is a competitor, we did a lot more advertising last year in the Burnsville News, in Edible Jersey, and in the A-frame signs, which he never had before, which Jeff actually advised us to get.
And the second question I have is, what's your maximum in terms of your permanent or long-term? You have 7 that are there all the time, and you have a whole bunch of pop-ups that some of them look really delectable. And you had mentioned that they'd like more space. So is this all a space issue, that you can't have more?
It is a space issue, and in the past, it was much easier to just say, we don't have any more space. But since this is a way of building the market, I've been fitting them in, and it's a bit of a juggling act. I don't know if you remember last year, we had the New Jersey Music School.
Academy of Music, yeah.
I think the New Jersey Academy, they're called themselves. Right in the middle, and playing, they had 6 attractive young people playing violins. And it was just an attraction. The ice cream is there in the middle as well, so we may have to put some of it in the middle. We do have more room on the other side, but that's across the railroad tracks, and I think that's not the best place, only because a lot of the people who come to the market, and one of the reasons they come to the market is they come with their children and with strollers. So I wouldn't recommend that.
Do you advertise, or you're going to be advertising every week, like this week will be the Black River Spice, or this week will be the Tree Woodworks, so people know that something special's coming?
They usually post it on Facebook. They have a Facebook
Didn't
page.
favor the new people in the past, because advertising is quite expensive, as you realize. It's $500 for a half-page ad in the Burnsville News, and edible jerseys quite a bit more expensive. So we can put up,
You have a Facebook page, right? Can you?
sorry,
Don't you have a Facebook page?
and we have a
Yeah,
Facebook page.
right.
which
That's
is-
free.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and that's usually, I mean, you've been posting things there
Yes, and
pretty
we've been doing
regularly.
that. Oh, thank you, Mary Jane. So this year, what we did was we had a picture from the library, and I know people at the library. The local history collection had a bunch of old pictures, and I noticed one of them had a farmer's market somewhere in the background. And I cropped it and I used it on the Facebook page, so I don't want to get too long here, but some people said that couldn't be a Burnsville photo because I had cropped it. But when I showed them the full photo, it said, oh yeah, that's from the Then and Now collection. So we put that on there and we said, farmer's market started in Burnsville in 1900, now wait for things to come. So we could have almost anything. So we're set up for that, yeah.
So what do you need from us at this point?
Well, you have to approve it. You know, so I think it has to go, officially through to the council and mayor, and you have to, sign it and approve it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if you have
A motion and resolution?
I'll
Okay.
move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You got it.
Thank you.
All right. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Ed, for all your time on that. Okay. Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion for February 25th and March 11th?
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Good. All right, at this time in the meeting, we have an open session. We welcome comments from the public. Please state your name and address when you come up. And we try and limit our speakers to 5 minutes, just so everybody has a chance to speak. And if you read a prepared statement, please make sure you give a copy to the clerk so we have it in the record. Would anyone like to be heard? Yes, come on up. Tell us your name and where you live.
Okay. Stay here?
Yeah.
Okay. John Fenimore, I live at 24 Burners Avenue, and I'm a real estate attorney, and I thought I'd bring to the forefront the confusion that's being caused by the ordinance, the proposed ordinance relative to the non-conforming uses. I'll say it straight out, this has had a chilling effect on certain deals that I personally am involved with and others that I'm aware of. Nobody seems to know what's going on, whether they have gotten a letter or not gotten a letter. Some people in the R5 zone who have duplexes, as noted on their tax bills, have gotten letters. Most of them probably have not. So we have a client right now who's got his smoke detector cert and his CRC, and we have a purchaser who's extremely wary of proceeding with this deal. And in this case, they're looking for a rather large concession in the event the hammer falls on them in the future. Personally, I don't understand it. I don't understand why there's a question now when people for the past 50, 60 years have been getting bills indicating that they have a two-family structure, and now it's called on the carpet in some instances. Some of the buildings are very easy to recognize as two families. They have two front doors, two set of stairways. Some are not so easy. I also happen to deliver mail to most of these places while I was in school, so I might have a lot more knowledge of these than most. And I don't care to be testifying for everybody and his brother, but that's the way it is, and we really need some guidance. I don't know if the house my mother lives in, by the way, at another Burns Avenue address, is going to be subject to scrutiny. She was born there 94 and a half years ago, and thank God she's still there. And it has always been a duplex. And you know, you get your tax bill, and it says two-family. You get your sewer bill, you're paying based on two-family. And in that particular case, where my mother lives, there's one person on one side and one on the other. It's really a family situation, but my nephew wants to be considered a tenant, so he costs me $150 a year. But that's neither here nor there. And so we're very confused as to who's getting a letter and who's not. And if this deal goes through that I personally have, Will that buyer have to worry about it next year? Nobody seems to know. And some of the proofs that I saw would be required, I'm sorry, title searches won't tell you how the zoning goes. I was at a Board of Adjustment meeting on Monday, and there was a fellow sitting next to me. He said, I bought my house on Wayne Avenue over 20 years ago, relying on the tax bill. So what's he supposed to do now? I just don't think the ordinance is fair, let alone just. And that's basically what I have to say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to, but I believe the letters are going out when they come up for inspection. Is that the time that we're sending them?
Yes, that is correct, Matt. We have a number of rental properties that are two-family and more. And what we decided to do is, instead of en masse sending all those letters out at once, we're doing them in monthly increments. So if you were up for rental in March, you would have got a letter if you were non-conforming. If you're in April, you'll get a letter in May and so on until next year, till February 2020 will be the last batch.
When you make the full cycle?
Yes.
Kind of uneven.
Well, there's also zoning records clearance, is that correct, Jeff?
Right, when that now house is sold, it has to get the records clearance, which includes a zoning sign-off for use.
Okay.
So it's fair to say, for those who have not gotten a letter, they will get one when they enter into the cycle.
Right, if they fall into the two-family or more category, then yes, they will.
And if it's sold, it has to make sure it's in zoning compliance before the transaction can close, is that correct?
That is correct.
Melanie, welcome.
Melanie Deepwood, Tier 141, Minebrook Road. I just got my letter. So I have to prove to the town that my house is a legit two-family house. But the town has been collecting taxes for the last 50 years on a two-family house. I don't understand. And what happens if I can't prove it? Because all my family members are dead, so I can't go to my mother and say, Ma, when did Grandma buy this house? And when she bought it, was it a two-family? So what if I can't prove it? Then what happens?
Then you'd have to
I
apply
have to
for a
kick my
variance.
tenant out?
No, you apply for a variance.
And what is that, and I was at that meeting Monday night, and there were a lot of people on the Board of Adjustments that didn't want to give that woman a variance. And
Did they in the end? I think
they
did.
did,
Oh.
but it wasn't easy.
And also, we can't, as an independent board, we really can't opine one way or another. All we can do is bring it to their attention by the ordinances, and they have to determine whether. And also, we put a list of resources you can go to. They can do deed searches,
Right,
a library, there's things like that.
I
There's Dave
understand all
Neal.
that, but I'm on 202. My house was part of the Bunn Estate, which is this building.
Mm-hmm.
It was his residence. It was the Vealtown Inn. It's been here forever. When my grandmother and grandfather bought it, it was a two-family house. But they're not here. What I'm saying is the house next to it, they also owned that house. That was a two-family house. But the borough bought it and put up the Habitat for Humanity. So I have Habitat for Humanity standing next to me, and then I have the apartments next to me. And I think there's probably about 15 apartments there. So the town is going to make me apply for a variance when my house has been a two-family house. Then I'm going to have to pay whatever that variance is when they've been collecting taxes for 20 years from me, personally, 20 years, because I've been there 20 years.
Well, it's
That
about
makes no sense to me.
1971, is that the key year?
But I've been there for 20 years.
So it's really been having to find out before 1971 if it was a two-family prior to 1971.
Right, but if you're collecting taxes on a house since 1971, because my grandfather died in 1969, I know they bought that house before then. So if you've been collecting taxes on it since then, for a two-family house, and then you're gonna make me pay for a variance if I can't prove it? It doesn't make sense. My family's been in this town for almost 100 years. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm a good landlord. I don't rent to stackers. I don't. There are couples that can't afford to buy a house in Bernardsville that want to live here. My sister lived there for a while. My mother lived there for 4 years. I understand there's a problem in Bernardsville, but by trying to fix that problem, you're also making more problems for people that follow the law. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Dave, can you help me? Sorry.
Something other than, because I've heard enough from people. Couple of questions on one resolution 19-72. I guess the Rubenetti issue hasn't gone away. In the glory,
That's a firm that we have a contract for to represent us.
the increase, you know, how much more you're gonna pay him?
That's what that resolution is for.
At what point are you?
It's renewing the
gonna
contract.
Rein it in? But he's got a heck of a case, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say.
Yeah. I think we can't really share because it's still
I know that,
under
I'm just doing
negotiation.
my feeling.
I know.
And the other one was possibly condemnation at the old Alley building.
That, actually, we're taking that off tonight. We're not doing that.
So I was just curious what the
Which number is that?
That was 75. Yeah, we're not doing that tonight.
All right,
That's
thank you.
coming off. I was just saying, could you have any records that could help Melanie?
Oh, I certainly do.
There you go.
And I'll state right now, John's father was the biology teacher when I was in high school.
Okay.
And he still lives there.
Yeah, and thank you. Dave has been helpful with a lot of these housing issues because he's got records and people that can testify. So.
That should have went out years ago.
Thank you. Oop, we've got somebody standing over here. Just
Good evening.
state your name and address, please.
My name is Frank Clancy, and I live at 101 Beechcroft Drive in Bernardsville. Madam Mayor, Borough Council members, Mr. Suriano, I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you regarding accessory buildings in the R1 zone, especially on the Bernardsville Mountain. I am a resident of Bernardsville for 27 years. And I reside at 101 Beechcroft Drive with my wife Pam. When we acquired our property in 1992, the property included a main residence and a detached two-story garage with a four-room apartment on the second floor, containing a living room, kitchen, bedroom, and a bath. We received a certified letter from the Borough of Bernardsville dated February 21st notifying us that our property potentially was not in compliance with the Borough zoning ordinance. After reading this letter many times, I was shocked and surprised at the content of this letter. Never before had we received any notification from the Borough of Bernardsville stating our property was not in conformance with all the zoning laws. In fact, we kind of got a mixed message because the certified letter also contained an annual registration and inspection form because our current rental certificate was about to expire in accordance with the local ordinance 11-2.5-E-2. The accessory buildings were primarily constructed in a different day and age, when the wealthy residents of our community were looking to house their domestic staff on their property. Although that still may be true to a smaller degree of some Bernardsville residents today, I would presume that most families in Bernardsville are working class families and require both adults in each household to work to pay the bills. In fact, some may depend on the rental income to pay their mortgages and/or their real estate taxes. We definitely live in a different time than the Gilded Era and need to make changes to the law to coincide with a different way of life that exists today. We respectfully request that the Borough Council instruct the appropriate entity to redraft the ordinance allowing us to continue to use and rent out these buildings on our property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. And I believe we have that on our agenda to address later, because I think when Jeff and I were at the Housing Committee meeting, I was not aware that that was still an ordinance on the books. And it actually, what it says is, if you have an accessory building, it should be rent-free. It should be for your groundskeeper and your manor staff or whatever. So I think it's definitely, you know, for people that are helping around the estate. Personally, I think it's antiquated, and I don't know about the rest of the council, but I think we should send it to the planning board to have them take a look at it and see if it can be modernized. So I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on that, but I think it's, you know, it is in this time, and with, you know, with the way real estate is, if you can have a rental property and have an outbuilding, it would be an asset to those properties.
I think also there's, I had a chance to talk to Jeff and Renee about this in the Housing and Zoning Office. And there's a safety component. If we don't know who's living in these buildings, then if there was a fire or some other kind of need for evacuation, for example, the police or fire department would know that there are residents there. So I think it's important to bring this all forward, and I agree with you. This is, the current language is outdated.
Yeah, and if they're registered rental, it's subject to the annual inspection, so we know everything would be safe for anybody that's living there. So that's a good point. Anybody else?
And the town's going to know exactly who lives there.
Right.
That is correct, Mayor. We have probably somewhere between 12 and 18 of these accessory dwellings on the mountain that we do look at each year.
But there may be more that you don't know about. Yeah. There could be more as well, I think, probably, that people aren't registering because they...
Quite sure there's a multiple of that, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if we make it known that there might be a change to this, we may have more people come forward, and then we'll be up to code and they'll be safe. So...
Could I ask a question?
Okay.
Just did.
So why is the rule different for them? I don't understand.
No, this is a whole different issue.
If they're renting that, then they have to be in compliance too, don't they?
It's a different ordinance. This is a different ordinance. This one is, says that if you have a completely separate building, it's okay to have people living there, but you're not supposed to charge them rent.
And how do you know they're not?
Well, that's what we're just saying is Jeff has records that show that some of them are rental properties because they've had them registered, I guess.
Yeah, they've been on the rental housing books for a number of years.
Yeah. So, okay. If you have a written, can you give that a copy to Anthony so that he has it in the record? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clancy. Anyone else want to come up? I saw somebody else. Oh, Steve?
Steve Brown, Stephen Street. Wouldn't the tax record be the evidence that showed it was a rental or multifamily house? I mean, if you have a tax record for 50-something years, isn't that all you need?
I'll let Jeff answer that, why it's not.
Well, it's, I think it's a component towards the proofs that would be required. But in a lot of cases, that often isn't the total and the whole story.
That's all.
It's not my call. It's not my call. It's my call to notify the residents and try and find some proofs for them if we have anything in the borough, which we have done on a number of occasions. but there's just some,
So they have to prove it to the Board of Adjustments?
that is correct.
So,
So what is enough?
There is a checklist, isn't there, of what documents are acceptable?
There is a checklist of documents that could be available to present to the board, yes. But at the end of the day, it's their decision, as the lady said, it was a 5-2 vote last Monday.
You know, it seems to me if you've got an assessment record from before 1971, that would be proof.
Right. It just,
So is
it's
there-
about the date.
well, that would, I mean, if you have it, but if the town actually has tax records of multi-family house from 1971 or 1960, yeah.
2 electric bills.
Is that enough where when you go to the Board of Adjustments, you don't have to have engineered drawings, everything, you just slide them a tax bill and say, here you go?
I can't speak for the Board of Adjustment, but it seems to me that we've got borough records, assessment records, sewer records showing it was a 2-family prior to 1971.
That would be adequate, yeah. Great. Okay, Jeff?
I just want to add to this. So I'm a little concerned because the folks that had to go before the Board of Adjustments the other day, it cost them about $18,000, which is a lot of money. I mean, you have a lot of seniors here that are going to be impacted here which don't have $18,000. Is there any way we can do this stuff outside of the Board of Adjustments through Jeff or Jeff's office, or hire somebody part-time to help with these folks? Because I'm sure there's, how many are on the list? There can't be too many houses on this list, is there?
I think, Jeff, one thing is, well, 2 things. One is we can only act in accordance with the municipal land use law, which specifies the procedure. But I think in the cases that have clear proof, if you've got an assessment pre-1971, then you don't have to apply for a D-variance and alternative.
Right.
It's much cheaper.
And I'm sure that didn't happen the other night. I think they had all the records, but they still had to,
They had to argue it.
they had to argue it.
And
They couldn't simply say, here's the information, pre-1971.
I don't know what the records they had.
Well, they weren't in the R5 zone, they were in the R4 zone, which has never had a
Which has never
multi-family.
Yeah, I'm in an R4 zone.
But you predate 71, which
But
it
you
sounds
don't-
like you do.
You're only looking for a 2-family, they were looking for a 3-family. And that's what tipped the scale for now.
So for people in the appropriate zone, looking for a 2-family, so there's nothing beyond the pale. It's looking for a 2-family housing in the appropriate zone, and if they've got that assessment, do they need to go to the Board of Adjustment? Or can we say as a council, to Jeff's office, that you're fine?
I wish we could, but we can't
Because of the-
MLA is very strict about it.
Right.
But as I said, if it's a clear case like that, they don't have to apply an alternative for a D-variance, which is really the expensive part of the application.
Right, the standard application is $200.
So the reason why that was 18,000 is because they were looking for something
They had a
beyond.
D-variance.
Okay.
Yeah, for the D-variance.
Enhanced quality of proof, it requires 5 affirmative votes, it's a much harder thing to get.
Sir, why did you say that you can't, that the board couldn't make the adjustment to not having to go to the Board of Adjustments?
Because municipal land use law, we have to act in strict conformance with it. It says if you apply within a year after the zoning ordinance to change the ordinance to make your use illegal, you can get it from the zoning officer. Anytime after that, you have to go to the Board of Adjustment. As I say, I wish we could change it, but they're very strict about that.
So what about those people that follow the rules and they follow everything and can't prove, like Jeff said, elderly people that have been in Burnsville for over 50 years living in a 2-family home? What about those people that can't afford to hire a lawyer? What, you're going to make them pay?
If they've lived there 50 years, all they need to say is that.
Is that, yeah, right, because it's before
Yeah, but that woman
1971.
was sitting there on Monday night saying, my family's been in this town for almost 100 years, and it's been a 3-family home for 50 years. And they were saying, well, we don't care.
Well, the Board of Adjustment is a separate independent body.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that
So-
these other people are gonna have to go up to the Board of Adjustments with all of their information, and if they don't want them to have the 2-family home, they're gonna say no.
Well,
right?
they have to follow the law. It can't be arbitrary. They can't just, they have to review whatever documents they have.
None of us like the situation we put in, though, because this was done in 71, but why it was never enforced after that, we can't speak to that, but it's reached a point now, I think everything needs to be brought sort of, in compliance, one way or another. So we're frustrated it has to happen this way too, but at some point it has to happen.
And at some point, if they sell the house, they'll have to come up with that documentation. So it's going to be required at some point anyway. So that's, this is kind of getting it before that point, but
But you understand the frustration.
I absolutely understand.
As part of one of the letters that's been amended, we're trying to give people like a list of resources you can go to, just not just something, it's go down to the library's historical office. There's an ad for it in 1970 saying, apartment to rent and this thing, anything that could give, we're trying to give some suggestions outside of the norm.
Or you could have.
Okay, so just to play the devil's advocate, so you have somebody that comes and tries to prove that it's not prove that it's been a two-family home since before 1971, and they can't prove it, then is the town going to give them their taxes back that they've been paying on a two-family home?
It's actually two separate things as we understand it, actually.
I'm just saying, I mean, this is, it's
I don't know how our
kind of
taxes
sticky.
aren't based on.
Well, you're right, it's
How many
definitely sticky, and
families
it
there are,
should have
isn't
been
it?
solved in the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, but it wasn't, and we're left now having to deal with it. So we're trying to help. Mr. Price's office is trying to help.
I'll be
Wherever
at Mr.
we're
Price's
trying to make it
office
happen.
tomorrow after I go to the county and see if I can
If you have records.
find the deed.
Okay. All right, anybody else from the?
I have a question for Jeff. So, Jeff, wasn't there a list where there were some properties that didn't receive a letter as a result of us knowing there was some evidence that they pre-existed? They
Well, if they had
pre-existed in 1971?
two doors.
That is correct, yes. We're trying not just to blanket all the multifamily dwellings that are out there. We are looking in the attic, we are looking in the safe, we are looking in places where there are borough records. And it's not an easy
What
task
level
to do.
what level of evidence, for example, was one where we didn't have to send a letter because we saw X, Y, Z?
There was a Board of Adjustment resolution that granted them the two-family status or the three-family status,
Okay.
or the multi-family status.
Okay.
There was resolutions that talked to the house next door or the house across the street and recognized that it was a multi-family dwelling.
I see. So it was a resolution not specifically about the property, but mentioned the property in the resolution.
That's correct. So it was recognized by the Board of Adjustment at that instant.
So then if you have that document, they don't even have to apply.
Yeah,
Right,
So,
okay.
can I just say, so let me just go a little further with that. So if it's clear through Jeff that he finds documentation in the town hall that the property is clear, it doesn't have to go to a board adjustment?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. But isn't, at some point, you have to provide some letter or something to us saying that this property is confirmed
That's the
performing?
thing, we can't do that. And those people that don't have to go to the board now may run into a problem when they go to sell it, because a lot of mortgage companies require proof when you're buying it.
Yeah, so you should keep, yes,
Eventually, you may
Even
have.
if it's from Jeff.
Right.
You still have to go to the Board of Adjustments and
At some point,
give them the
but
proof.
that's not a borough decision. If your mortgage company, if the buyer's mortgage company requires some kind of proof.
No, but I mean, like for now, you have to do it anyway, because in my letter it said, if you don't do this within 60 days, you are doing something illegal. So I wouldn't be able to have a tenant there. I would have to tell them to leave if I couldn't.
You don't have to prove it in 60 days. You have to put your application in, start the process with the Board of Adjustment within 60 days. So the decision doesn't have to be made in 60 days. You don't have to have the proof in 60 days. You have to submit your application response so that we know that you're working on it.
So if I go and I get the proof tomorrow, then I have to put my application to come in front of the Board of Adjustments.
well, actually, if you have your proof, go see Jeff and he'll tell you what the next step is, or, whatever else you need to do. But actually, I think Jeff is the,
Jeff can't approve it, I have to go in front of the Board of
it
Adjustments.
depends on what you have, what kind of documentation you have.
Because Jeff doesn't provide a letter that, he does
Right.
not provide a letter that the mortgage company would need in order to sell
But
it.
not at this point, but at some point, if you have proof, it's good now, it'll be good when you sell the house. It's just getting.
But I'm not worried about when I sell the house, I'm worried about now. Like, if I have to go and get the proof, I still have to go in front of the Board of Adjustments in order to get my letter saying, yes, this was a two-family
Right.
house before 1971.
Yes.
How long does that take? Like, how,
Well, it's not, you don't have, you have to start the process within 60 days. And after that, it's not your problem how long it takes. It's up to the Board of Adjustment, because they have to schedule it and work around their schedule. It could take
but
them,
they have to work around my schedule too, because my husband's back and forth to Washington DC. So,
what,
I
it's
mean,
whatever, yeah. Okay, does anyone else in the public want to be heard? Anybody? You have to come up. You look like you want to say something. No? Okay. Anybody else? All right, we'll close the public session. There'll be another one later if you feel so inclined. I'm going to open the public hearing on ordinance 2019-1799, an ordinance appropriating $75,000 from the Borough Open Space Trust Fund for various improvements. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on this ordinance? Jeff?
Okay, guys, so, as you know, we put a turf field in 2018. In 10 years from now, in 2028, that turf field is going to need to be replaced. It will cost about $500,000 to $600,000 to replace that turf field in 10 years. That's about the average for most towns. We had two ways of recouping the money, so we don't hit the taxpayers 10 years down the road with a $500,000 bond. Was to collect fees, use fees, whoever uses the turf, collect fees. And the second option was to put money aside from the 20% open space trust fund every year and build it up enough so when it is time to replace that field up there, there's money available that we don't need to go create bonds for and hit the taxpayers. So my question is, first I wanted to educate everybody about that because everybody is fairly new here. And secondly, I want to make sure as the budget process goes along here in the next couple of weeks, Ralph informs everybody what's going on here. So my question is this $75,000, how much impact is this on our current open space 20% recreation funding money?
Well, actually, it won't be any impact because we have an opportunity to cancel some existing ordinance that will put exactly, and it's coincidental, $75,000 back into the open space maintenance portion of the ordinance.
Okay, so by the end of this year, it should be around
It'll be more than that.
It should be around 80,000 in there for 10 years.
It will be more than that because
it's closer to 90, I think.
Just keep that in mind as you think about open space projects.
It has been, I don't want to speak for the finance committee, but we've had many meetings and that was discussed in depth with the three members of the committee.
Thank you, Jeff. And by the way, this 75,000, 15,000 of it is for plantings around the new Kiwanis Park, the playground there, so that we block the electrical station. It's to do a picnic grove at the Burnsville Pool for $25,000, and remediation that's state mandated for the dam here at Lindaberry Pond on Nervine Park, and that's $35,000. So that's what makes up that $75,000. Did anyone else want to be heard on that ordinance? All right. I'll close the public hearing then. So I need a motion to pass on final reading and adopt as published.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ms. Samara?
Yes.
Okay, this is fees. Finance Chair, why don't you introduce it?
I move that ordinance 2019-1800, an ordinance concerning fees for applications for certifications of nonconformity and use variances, and supplementing and amending Article 15 of the Borough Land Development Code entitled Fees and Escrow Deposits, be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, April 8th.
You have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, voice vote? Oh, that's just it. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Resolutions. We are going to pull out 1975. Does anyone else have one that they want to pull from the consent agenda?
I just have a comment.
Uh-huh.
So for 1971, approving membership in the fire company, I wanted to mention Sage Echo as a junior member volunteering for the fire company and thank him for his volunteering. It's encouraging to see we've got...
It's a girl.
Sorry.
It's a girl, yeah.
Thank her for her involvement. I think it's this is a number of different
like
junior
the
members,
fourth
or fifth, I think, in recent months. So thank you, Sage, and all the other people who volunteered as well.
Yeah, it was interesting to see, I think, Jeff, when we were at the firemen's dinner, there was a whole table of young people who were getting involved, so it's really encouraging.
Yeah, it's interesting, it's good, you know?
Yeah, it's great, thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else? Comments?
I'll make it just to follow up on that comment. We were at the annual fire department dinner, and I was just stunned by the number of calls that they do, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the fire company did something on the order of 800 calls last year, and the EMS, first aid component, did another 600 change. I mean, that's just a phenomenal number for our community, and so I think we really need to appreciate what they do.
Yeah, and all volunteer force, too.
Yeah. And actually, if you look on their website, they keep a running total of the calls, the number of calls. So if you want to see how many they make, you can look on their webpage. It's really
I think most people in this room know this,
impressive.
but they're not part of the borough. That seems to be, some people have that.
They've always been volunteer.
I know they're all volunteer, but a lot of people don't realize, they think they're sort of part of the borough.
Oh, they pay for,
establishment.
that they own their own building, and it's, yeah, they raise a lot of their own funds. Okay, can I have a motion for resolutions 19?
I just noticed this is including the introduction of the budget, so should I just...
Oh, yeah, we'll pull out the budget. Let's pull out the budget.
The budget is-
I didn't realize that was still on, that was, yeah. I keep forgetting that that's a resolution.
These
Yes.
two are separate.
Okay.
Yeah, they are separate. So we're doing 1961 through 1979.
Not
Oh,
including
eight.
1975.
Now you got me confused.
Through 1980.
1980 and not 75, yes. Okay, motion.
I move.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mrs. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
All right, I will let our finance chair do 1981, and do you want to do your talking points so that we
Yeah.
kind of...
So I just wanted to mention that the Finance Committee, made up of myself, Mayor Canos, Councilman Donahue, along with the finance staff in the borough, Ralph Maresca, Doug Walker, Leslie Roberson, met about 7 or 8 times, I believe, since January. We've done a comprehensive review of all the department requests, and we've reviewed each line item in the budget. I think it's on the order of about 900 or 1,000 lines in the overall budget. We're introducing the budget tonight, and then in 2 weeks we'll actually vote to approve the budget. So this is
And there'll be a public hearing.
and there'll be a public hearing as well. So
That's on April 22nd.
April
It won't- it
22nd.
won't be in 2 weeks, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the 22nd.
What's
April
the
22nd.
increase?
So we're going to run through that and give you the increase in just a second. The budget through the process with the finance committee and the finance staff, we looked at capital planning, managing our debt. We're planning for some larger long-term purchases, a new fire truck, a new ambulance, which supports the fire department the all-volunteer fire department that we discussed, as well as a new loader, are things that we're putting in partial funding towards so that we won't have one big expense in future budgets. We've increased the budget to the library by 2% this year to support the library's ongoing needs. We've also, in terms of utilizing open space, we talked about using the open space funds the $75,000 we talked about earlier today, and fortunately for us, we have $75,000 in prior commitments that, underspent, which is going to offset that amount. That allows us to pay for these things without impacting the operating budget. The overall operating budget, to your question directly, is going to increase by 1.97%. That's roughly the rate of inflation, the consumer price index increase over the last 12 months, and it's underneath the cap that's set by New Jersey State. Additionally, in addition to the 1.97%, which is what's going up for the operating budget, We also have an additional 1% increase that's related to the voter-approved 2015 road referendum. So that 1% combined with the baseline 1.97% increase results in a total increase of 2.97%, which is consistent with about the last 5 years or so and relatively low historically for the borough. The impact to the municipal budget based on this increase for average residential assessment, which in our town is around $740,000, is less than $115,000 for the year, or somewhat less than $10 a month per.
$115, you mean?
Pardon?
$115.
$115?
Yeah,
You said 1,000.
What did I say? Oh.
115,000.
No, it's $115.
I was ready to do CPR.
That's a bad mistake to make. It's $115 for the year, which would be a little bit less than $10 a month for an average, one of our average assessments, which is $740,000. If your property is assessed at more or less, your increase would be proportionally different. That's the summary that we have. Obviously, I would encourage any of the council members, if they have more detailed questions, we have an extensive amount of data behind this as well. The borough staff's available to meet at length if individual council members want more information, and the information is also published on our website as well, right, in the proposed budget.
Okay,
This
so-
does not include what's going to come down the pike with the school board.
No, this is only the municipal
This
piece.
is just the municipal portion of the budget. The other,
Taxes will go up for this, and taxes will go up for school board.
they're not additive, you would average them together. So if our increase was 2.97% for about 30% of the budget, and the school's increase is 2% for 62% of the budget, let's say approximately, then you would average those two numbers together, it'd be like 2.5%.
And then there's a county piece as well.
And there's a county piece, there's a county open space piece, and there's a municipal open space piece, so there's like 5 pieces.
So
Ours is
we don't
actually the
have one
smallest.
number that people's taxes are gonna go up, so they can actually go, okay, well, my taxes are gonna go up. It's like
Not till everybody's
impossible
budgets
No,
are
it's-
done.
to figure
published
out
as-
what is really the number, the one number.
When do we get the final rate, when everyone's submitted their budget?
That's when the county strikes the
Right.
rate, when all communities in Somerset County
Have submitted.
adopted their budget, and the county will strike the rate at that point in time.
So that's
Thank
usually
you.
about when? June, July, yeah?
End of May, June.
Okay. So you won't have
The
the,
tax bills are supposed to be out by the middle of July, so it's got.
So they have to strike the
sometimes they're
rate.
late, but, in June, yes.
That's one of the things I think we're trying to educate the community on. We send the tax bills out, so we hear it, but, we're trying to carve out, so our what we control is actually not quite, not even the majority of it, so.
No, it's probably
It's the
a third or less.
smallest.
But we were gonna have more extensive
Yeah.
presentation of material, so during the
public hearing.
public hearing on April 22nd, we'll have more data information, we'll have a presentation showing the information, as well as some pie charts to help people understand the things that Councilman Donahue's referring to, which is what portion of the budget is municipal responsibility, and what portion of the tax bill that you receive each year is due to these other areas.
So on April 22nd, there's a public hearing, but we also vote to approve it at that?
Yes,
We'll vote to approve
after
it
the
that-
public hearing.
After the public hearing that day.
Yeah.
So we're just introducing the budget today.
Okay, so you're moving it?
Will there be any discussion on that? Our next meeting is April 8th. Will there be any discussion on that meeting? No.
That's not the plan, no.
No.
Okay. I just wanted to know.
Okay. So you are
So
moving it?
I move to pass Resolution 1981, introduction of the 2019 municipal budget.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Mayfield?
No.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, reports. Council Public Safety Committee, did you meet?
Just met, downstairs.
Okay, I knew there was a meeting at something tonight. And?
And, 10 minutes.
Yeah, I got one. So we met with Lieutenant Gardner and Chief Valentine, the Congressman Donahue and I, and there were a number of items, just to be very brief, we're moving ahead with pursuing police accreditation, which would have an impact on reducing our insurance. They're posting a position for the open sergeant position. They broke ground today on the parking kiosk in the train station.
Good.
There was much discussion about the electronic speed signs and the impact on speeding enforcement. We have 2 of these that still have to be installed, but according to the chief, he thinks that they've been effective. They actually contain a wealth of data, so that it also helps them with data-targeted patrols, for example. We talked about pedestrian safety, the walkability study, which we've heard in the past, some issue related to the speed limits on Anderson Hill and Mount Harmony roads that were voted on by this council earlier. We're waiting for the ground to thaw so that new speed signs can be installed. There was a discussion about speeding on Wesley Avenue, and it was felt that the only possible remedy that has not been tried and which might be feasible is a speed hump, and that's as opposed to a speed bump. This is a more gentle hump, and using a permanent rather than a temporary one. But the decision was made that first we want to survey the residents to see how they would feel about that.
Isn't that also an issue with plowing, when they have those speed humps?
So for the temporary ones, the question is whether it would be with the permanent ones. So again, this would have to be turfed to the Public Works Department as well.
Pros and cons to the old conversation, so.
Yeah.
And then there was a discussion about some housing and zoning issues related to areas behind, between the train tracks and behind some of the buildings where the Latin American Grocery, the Bernard's Cafe, the Mastro's are, and there are going to be some lighting put back there for safety purposes.
So, question, the data, maybe Kevin, you can answer that. You collect in the little things, so you...
It is yes and no. The new speed signs that we put out do have data collection capabilities in them that we can electronically dial into and pull speed counts and traffic counts out of those signs.
So you could, at a certain time of day, so many cars were over the speed limit, so then at that time it might be worth having a patrol car out there, is that kind of?
Well, that's for the speed signs. It really helps us to determine whether or not the signs are being effective or not.
Yeah.
Because we can turn them on and off, and while the speed signs are off, we can still collect data.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you know, even though they're off, people think they're not working, but sometimes we turn them off on purpose so that we can see what's happening when the signs aren't flashing. But some of the other data that we're collecting, you know, we have portable units, traffic counter units that we put out there that you wouldn't even notice, where we can collect a lot of data. And specifically, those are the units that provide us with the targeted reports that help us with the targeted enforcement. So we can find out when there's computer analysis that can be run and reports that can be run that tell us the best time of day or night to deploy our patrols and when the violations are occurring, so that we're not, you know, on a fishing expedition. We're targeting specific times and places for traffic.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's
The other things we discussed, just really briefly, there's going to be some targeted, I guess maybe targeted patrols might not be the right word, but there will be a focus on distracted driving through a grant that was obtained, and so in April there'll be extra hours, won't be any cost to the borough, focusing on distracted drivers.
There's a lot of those.
Can I ask a question there?
Are you
going to purchase more of these speed?
The machines? Do we have a plan to do that?
We don't have anything in the budget for this year. We still have 2 more that need to be deployed. So I think the answer to that would be, you know, we're pleased with the results that we're getting right now, and at the end of the year, I think we can assess if there's a need to purchase more of them.
Could I make a recommendation?
I know.
Mount Road.
You knew that was coming, right?
The new speedway.
Mine Mountain. Yeah.
She paved the road in terms of.
That's the problem with paving sometimes, is it makes everybody go faster. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Christine has a question.
So in the police monthly, the regular monthly report, there's an increase in traffic enforcement radar. Is that why?
Summonses?
It just says traffic enforcement radar.
I have to look specifically, but we've been paying a lot more attention to enforcing traffic violations in town, because we've targeted a lot of different areas and a lot of different types of offenses that we've been deploying with a purpose to try and focus in on various different problems that we know exist. So I think there's going to be increasing some of them as a result of that general effort across the board.
Because a few residents, maybe more than a few, have complimented the police department about that and told me that they like to see it.
Yeah.
And are happy about it.
As long as they're not the ones with the summonses, right?
No,
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
I'm just saying, they know, if I noticed it on the report, and then it made sense because people said they noticed it
We have a
around.
lot of new young officers who are, yeah, do some work too, so that helps a lot, so.
Yeah, I like to say, good job. I see these guys in more parts of the town during the night, which is good. It's good for the town.
Yep. I don't think we have a finance committee, because.
No, we talked about the finance committee information, I think, in the earlier item.
Yep. Personnel committee, have you met since the last meeting or not?
Not since the last council meeting, but on one of the resolutions, two of them were the pay increases that we talked about last
Right.
time.
Changing the hours and, I thought it was, the Public Works, do we have a report?
Yeah, I was out when we had the last meeting, but, so I'm gonna let John fill in, but I do wanna say that this summer and into the early fall, as we've discussed in the past, Anderson Hill Road from down by the library will be paved, as well as where the county part of Mendham Road. So I had asked John to ask Morris County if they plan, because that's probably worse
It
than
is.
any of it. And at first, we
is.
didn't think it was gonna happen, but it turns out from the Black Horse Inn all the way to the library will be paved by, what do you say, John, like by October?
They weren't specific about it, they just said this summer.
Okay,
All the way to our library?
yes.
Well, that, because they're.
Because we're doing Anderson.
We're doing
Oh, sorry,
Anderson.
sorry.
And then
Yes.
Somerset County's doing
Yes,
our
yes,
part
yes.
of Mendham Road,
Yeah.
and then Morris County's
Got
gonna
it.
pick up, and it's gonna be.
Between the two of us, it'll go all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, from Black Horse all the way down to our library,
Excellent.
yeah.
The state will be doing from Springhouse Road west out to Far Hills.
Far Hills Country Day, yeah. I actually, after we said nobody ever complained, I just got an email, someone complaining about Mendham Road again. And I think the Morris County part is worse, because
It is
they
definitely
haven't even
worse.
patched.
It's like
At least
driving on the moon over there.
Somerset County's been patching, but
Yeah.
they have big holes, so.
They do.
That'll be great when it's all done.
Mayor,
Yes, boy.
are they going to replace the bridge this year, Kevin, at Far Hills? What happened with that?
It was supposed to be in the fall, they had targeted that, but I hadn't heard anything about that recently, so I don't know if they're on target for that or not.
Because that's gonna be a headache.
We haven't received any notices about any
sidewalk on
construction
Claremont.
news at this point regarding that.
Thank you.
John, was there something about the sidewalk on Claremont too from,
Yes, that's actually the last thing on the list. If you don't know, the work on the slope is underway, the drainage work has begun. Hopefully about the end of this week, early next week, that'll be completed. And they'll be getting started on curb up in the Somerset, Upper Chilton cul-de-sac, and working their way through that neighborhood. Actually this week, will also be a little bit more work on Hill Hill Road, resetting existing inlets. And then that project will get underway. We have a meeting on the 27th with the DEP regarding the trail project outside our window at Memorial Park. And then also to talk to them about the White Neck Road bank stabilization project. Next week, we'll also be getting started with the wastewater treatment plant filter replacement project. So we'll be gumming things up in the parking lot. Our already challenging parking lot is going to get a little bit more challenging for about the next 2-3 months while that project is going on. We've sent a letter to a resident looking for an alternative location for one of our Welcome to Bernardsville signs. DOT doesn't want them in there right away. We think we found a good location. I'm waiting to hear back from the resident on that. And we did discuss Claremont Road and the, hesitate to call it a sidewalk. We have sidewalks on two sides of the Claremont Field parking area, about the walkway As we discussed at the Public Works meeting, I've spoken to Tom Wood about the situation. I've been by numerous times and have not witnessed any vehicles in the area, so it is much better. And I think we can work with the business owner to alleviate the problem of cars parking and blocking what is not really a sidewalk, but is effectively
More like a
sidewalk or
walkway.
walkway area.
Yeah.
If that isn't successful, we could always consider painting some stripes like the fire company does to just acknowledge that this is a walkway area that you shouldn't be parked on, but Tom's employees have been very good since I talked to him.
Great, thank you.
We also, the engineer had some really good input at that meeting about different options for that area, so.
Yeah, all of which cost money.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, committee reports, housing, zoning, liaison reports. Or we have Jeff's report, I don't know if, that Jeff, I don't know if this Jeff, we had a committee meeting, if there was anything.
Right, well, what came out of that is that we were looking at revising some of the existing ordinances where there's gaps. One thing we did was look at the sign survey, or the ordinance related to signage, and then Chad McQueen and I walked the town and looked at every business from Royal Cleaners on the west to Walter's Garden Store on the east, and found about 19 stores that we thought might not be in compliance. We've passed that along to the Housing Zoning Office, and they are in the process of inspecting. Now, some of those had permission, have variances to do it. Some are out of compliance, and appropriate actions are being taken. The other thing is that we are looking at the property maintenance language in the existing ordinances. And while it's very strong for commercial businesses, it's not as strong for residential buildings, and difficult for us to enforce if we had to go to court. So we will at a future meeting present to the council revised language which we then could recommend to the planning board to incorporate.
Actually, the planning board is not involved in property maintenance.
Oh, it's not? Okay, well, then we can.
So the council can do it.
Okay, oh, that's right, it's not land use, it's property maintenance, it's a borough.
So we
then
could do that.
We would decide.
Yeah.
And we hope to have that sometime in April.
Okay, thank you. And I did, one of the things that we talked about was seeing if a chamber member wanted to help with the signage, and I did ask, and didn't get any volunteers right away, but I'll continue to ask.
The thought was that since the downtown redevelopment group is going to be, I guess, outsourcing this to Common Ground to come up with some sort of streetscape and signage, we would pass along our observations and our recommendations to them as well.
Yeah. And you had Jeff's report. Did anybody have any questions for Jeff? No.
Can I just say that the planning board has had a draft revision of the sign ordinance for about 4 years. And it was such a battle to get it that far that it hasn't gone any further. If you'd be interested in a copy, I can certainly send it to you.
Yeah, I've dived into it. There's a lot of ifs, ands, buts, and maybes and all that, and it's treacherous.
Yeah, no, that would be great. If you want to share it, that would be a good starting place. Any other liaison reports? We'll start and go this way. How about that?
Can I just go back to personnel, because Ralph reminded me that we did talk about an increase of hours for our fire prevention person, so that will be
on the next agenda.
Yeah, we have our fire prevention official who's close to, by the end of the year, will be retired, and it's a two-man operation. By July, we'd like to begin to advertise for someone to take not necessarily his spot, but there's an assistant that may likely move into that top spot, but yet it still needs to be a two-man operation. So we just wanted to, every member of the council, we talked about this in personnel and in finance, but we just wanted to let you know we don't have anyone yet, but just to make sure you give us the authority to go out and look when the time comes in July.
Okay. Did you have a liaison report?
The green team,
Yeah.
we already heard about farmers market. The community garden, also has an opening, a grand opening coming.
Christina, there's still 2 slots left?
I'm not sure, but the person in charge is Wanda Napick.
If I could tag team with you, because I'm doing environmental, and the green team, are they doing a milkweed plant also? Milkweed planting? I made a note of that, I wasn't sure of the date.
Oh, that must be the butterfly.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the butterfly pledge.
So, yes, the green team is also supportive of the mayor's butterfly pledge. And part of that is a milkweed planting, and that'll be at Kiwanis, at the new playground. As far as I know, they might be more. They're very busy planting.
They are, that time of year.
E-Waste Day is April 27th. That's the day you drive through the Borough High parking lot and drop off your old computers, printers, etc.
And get your trees.
The shade tree, but I don't want to steal.
Can I just
thunder.
interject here? They said at a meeting, no broken cathode ray tubes. They can't take them, they won't take them because
No
I guess
broken what?
cathode, the old monitors, the big giant heavy ones. If they're cracked, they can't take them because there's a hazmat issue. So even if it's in the dumpster, they won't take the dumpster if there's one in there, so they won't.
If there's any screen that's broken, they won't take it.
Correct.
There's also a movie that the Green Team is showing at the library on April 22nd. It's a documentary, Living the Change, at 7 p.m. at the library. And the next meeting for the Green Team is April 4th.
Okay. Diane?
Board of Health, Marine Crest Park was retested. We're waiting on the results of the E. coli.
Okay.
There's free stroke screening on Wednesday, May 15th from 1 to 4, and it will be at the PPAC Gladstone Town Hall. It's sponsored by the Morristown Medical Center. And there's also a health screening on Thursday, May 9th from 7 to 9:30 a.m. at the St. James Church in Basking Ridge. That's sponsored by Board of Health. And residents $35, non-residents $45, and you have to pre-register in person on April 8th between 9 and 4 at the Burns Township Health Department. And for HPAC, Dunster, Squibb, there's 8 or maybe 9 contractors whose qualifications are currently being reviewed for the main house. And repair for the windows of the barn, stables, and garage is going to be starting like very, very soon. And in May, painting for the outside.
Yeah, they just got funding for that, right? Did they get a grant for that?
Yes, we got the grant for that.
Okay. Tom, did you have any meetings?
I don't have any reports now.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, yes?
Shade Tree. Shade Tree's been pretty active, and I guess the most important thing is that of the 4 plots of borough land which we had a plan for, which had already been sent over, we walked that last weekend with Public Works and started planning out actually what trees have to come down first that are dead or dying or would facilitate us to do site prep. So that's underway.
John, do you have one?
Just the Environmental Commission, but I covered a lot in conjunction with Christine, and I think the only thing we might have the stream cleanups this month too, so.
Yes, that's right. When is it? April?
It's on our agenda.
Oh, that's right.
13th?
Yes, we have it on our items of business.
April 13th, so I was going to talk about it.
Okay,
we can talk about
we'll
that.
wait till we get there. Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I just expand on what Jeff was saying.
About the trees?
Yeah, about the trees. There is one large white pine tree that from the roadway doesn't look too bad. It's starting to grow out into the wires a little bit. On the back side, there's some pretty significant storm damage, and it's actually covering up several hollies that you wouldn't even know were in there. And we would like to remove that tree. We'd like to get Tree Tech in. They've indicated they could come in this Thursday before our volunteers went in and started pruning some of the vines and pretty nasty stuff that you really don't pay any attention to it as you go by the wastewater treatment plant. It does an effective job of screening the plant. When you get in there, it's really nasty, and they just want to get in and start doing some pruning. But this white pine would need to go first, so wanted to let council know. I don't know if I need to ask your permission to remove this tree, but if so, I'm asking if you can go in and...
I tell you, Ed, is it okay? Okay. He's our shade tree expert, so he says it's okay. And that's some of these trees that are going to be planted in front of there, yes or no?
Not in this area.
No, they're not in front of the,
Well, the idea, I think, was to allow the other trees that are there that are
To
being
fill out.
retarded to be able to expand and grow,
Right.
the hollies, for example. that would-
Yeah,
if we
'cause they
open
give
things-
nice
If we
coverage.
open things up, then it'll be improved. There are other areas along that fence in front of the water treatment plant for which we do plan to eventually put trees.
okay.
Thank you.
Everybody okay with the birch going? All right.
Pine.
Pine, sorry, not white birch. Okay, items of business, New Jersey Transit Quiet Zone. This was something that Jeff pointed out when we were talking about the train noise, and Doug had gotten us some more information, and there was quite an involved brochure there about how you can apply and what you can do with it. The problem with it is, of course, the borough has to pay for it if we want to do that, and you'd have to put, we have, what, 4 or 5 crossings?
5 crossings, about $25,000 per crossing.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a little prohibitive.
So my question would be, do we have to do all 5, or is it up to us if we just chose 1 or 3?
I think it depends on the proximity of the crossings. So I think our crossings are pretty close.
They are.
So I think we have to designate larger area as a quiet zone. We could, like I said, it is an application, submit the transit.
And what is it, as they approach each crossing, they have to blow the horn 4 times? Is that what?
If you establish the quiet zone, then they won't be blowing their.
Right, but right now, what they're doing is that every single crossing,
A couple when they enter and then a couple when they leave. But
Right.
our crossings are so close that it's just constant.
it's like a constant, yeah.
They have to-
The next is very close. So I don't know how we would establish a quiet zone for, let's say, like Meeker and not have it for White Neck.
Right.
They have to blow 2 long, 1 short, 1 long, so that gets considerable. I thought, if I read it correctly, you couldn't have 2 quiet zones within a half mile of each other. Maybe I misread it, but that's what I thought it said. So that would make it a problem, I guess, for multiple ones that are daisy chained.
I interpreted that the other way.
You did.
Saying that if they were very close, you couldn't say this is a quiet zone, this one is not.
You could consolidate them, okay.
You'd have to do them all.
Right, because they're so close, you're still going to hear them when they get to the next one.
Right, so it wouldn't really,
Quiet zone prior to it and after, you know what I'm saying?
it wouldn't really solve it. I did send a letter on behalf of Mr. Rushman to our contact that you had, Doug had reached out to, and asked them to contact Mr. Rushman directly. And hopefully I will check back with him and see if they've done that so that they can talk. Because it was a particular train or engineer that he was having a problem with, so maybe if he addresses it directly with them, rather than me, or us being in the middle each time.
And I'll get clarification on if we have to do all 4 or 5 crossings.
Right, or if you could do just one.
I wonder whether we could, when I read the regulations that they have, the noise level has to be at a minimum of 96 decibels, and I think a maximum of 110 or something. I think that was the number. Is there a way of, we could at least suggest that they check that, make sure that they're not going above the maximum?
Sure.
Well, actually, and I addressed that in my letter because Mr. Rushman is saying he's measured them and they're louder than they're supposed to be, so I mentioned that to, I forgot her name, the person that we were in contact with there, so hopefully they'll check that.
Just for clarity, Doug, you said the 25,000 per crossing, that's an estimate. Could be a little bit more, could be less. Is 25,000 is an estimate?
Between 20 and 30.
20 and 30, yeah.
So I think 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's for reviewing the safety, and what is it paying for?
When you have to
You have to
line
have
gates, you can't have it so folks can drive around between the 2 gates. You know, we just do 1 lane and 1 lane. It has to go across totally both lanes.
Okay.
On both sides.
In order for us to have it, it'd be a quiet zone.
Right, and if you have any kind of a walk or a pathway, there has to be a pedestrian gate that comes down on both sides as well.
Okay.
You also have, you have to have signage that says, in fact, that there's no horns or no
Right.
signs.
The plan has to be submitted by an engineer, so you're gonna have.
So you have engineering costs as well.
The application, and you're gonna have the actual work, those would be the 3 components.
We've had one complaint about this?
Yeah.
I've had a couple, but.
One
did anyone
formal.
do there was one question. Did anyone see that it says that there's this FRA quiet zone calculator tool?
Yeah.
And you can use the tool, like any of us, or even a resident could do this, where you go on and do like a preliminary analysis as to whether or not we could do it.
Oh, we could do it, I think as the mayor pointed out, it's a matter of money.
Yeah, well, it's on page 8. And then the other thing it talked about was wayside horns. Did you look at those? Wayside horns is the other option.
Yeah, I saw that. So
Also very expensive.
so that's a horn that's pointing outward towards the car.
Towards the tracks, yeah.
Well, actually not towards the track, but from the track towards the car, which is triggered automatically by the approaching train. That still creates a noise, though. That's still a horn.
It's just a quieter option, I think. It's a different way of solving.
Yeah, and it even says you're encouraged to get a professional to do this. So don't try this on your own. Okay, so next is the Grand Fondo Cycling Event, September 8th, 2019. And I'm not sure how many, we've been doing this for quite a number of years, haven't we, Kevin?
Yes, no problem.
So you're okay with it? It's all set up, so.
It's a great event.
As long as I'm not sure if they reached out to Lieutenant Gardner yet.
Did they copy him on the agenda?
It's in September.
Yeah, so we're all good with that? Okay, stream cleanup. Ta-da.
Oh, on April 13th is the stream cleanup. And we would like to assemble at this pond outside, but last year we were able to access the bathrooms here, and I'm just hoping we can do that again this year.
And that's up to the council to say, is that okay? So,
Okay, so it's 8 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I'm in favor of that.
no, anybody else? We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to use the bathroom. So
Yeah.
I'm here the whole time, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Review of planning board recommendation regarding parking decals. And that was,
I have notes if you'd like me to summarize.
sure.
Okay.
Oh, that's planning board, of course. So you're
Yes.
on the planning board. You go for it.
So the planning board talked at length about the question that was presented to them by the Borough Council regarding the parking decal situation in the Emmerman parking lot. There was a good bit of back and forth, and they put together a proposal and a memorandum that's in the package today. Talks extensively about what the recommendation is, but I'll just highlight what the bullet points are. So the first one was to enforce limits to create a turnover on the existing downtown spaces. This is going to work in conjunction with the other recommendations on this document. So enforcing the spaces to create turnover is the first part of the recommendation, and then open up the Emmerman parking lot, the entire parking lot, for free shopper parking for up to 4 hours. And what we would do then is offer the business owners for 1 year a waiver or reduction in their decal cost. Instead of $200 per decal, we would charge $10 per decal, and that would just keep the system in place rather than changing it wholesale. We'd have a year to evaluate if this approach is going to be better or if there are going to be any unintended consequences. This would allow people with the decal to park in the parking lot for more than 4 hours. So if you had an employee who has an 8-hour shift, they could come park in the parking lot and they would not get a ticket because they could park for the entire 8 hours as long as they display their decal. So the decal would be a nominal fee of $10 a year, like less than $1 a month. For people who currently have the decals, they would still be required to buy them, but they'd be much more affordable. That they would not be guaranteed a spot. If you have a decal, you're not guaranteed a spot. It's all open parking, free shopper parking. Anybody with a decal can park for more than 4 hours, but anybody at all could park in the parking lot for up to 4 hours, free of charge. In conjunction with this is a suggestion to reconsider all the parking requirements that are put on our merchants that occupy space downtown, and consider if a new approach might be better, and see if perhaps we would then not require any existing buildings that are already built and in our town to have additional parking spots. There's a plethora of reasons that you go through now with our parking requirements that require them to have a certain number of parking spots. So as new tenants come in and go out, the new tenant is subject to having enough parking spaces, which is traditionally a problem. But since we have this one solution in conjunction with, the turnover, hopefully the enforcement piece creating greater turnover, the existing merchants would not be required if a new person moved into a building that already exists today. They wouldn't be required to buy decals except for maybe at this reduced fee. In conjunction with this is to review current signage to make sure that as we augment the amount of parking that's available to people and increase the amount of shopper parking, for example, at the Ammerman lot, that people are well aware of it, but also if we're going to enhance our enforcement, make sure that there's good signage showing, what the limits are for the spots that are in the main downtown area. And then the final part of the recommendation is to reevaluate after 6 months to see if it's working the way we've intended it to work. And if it is working the way we intended it to work, we can continue to do this approach. And if we see that there's issues or unintended consequences, then we have 6 months before this. So the idea is to put this in place for 1 year, but at the 6-month point, reevaluate and see if we need to tweak anything or change anything with this approach, or if this approach is working better from the viewpoint of the merchants and or shoppers.
And the key is enforcement.
Yes, and I think, I drove through on the way to the meeting tonight. There's 46 spaces in the Ammerman parking lot. There's really 48 spaces, but the last 2 spaces might be hard to get in and out of. So there's really 46 usable spaces, and one of them is a handicap spot, or maybe 2. But that's a significant amount of parking to add to our, right now there's only 6 spots that are marked as shopper parking. So that's like adding 40 shopper parking spots to our downtown. And I think this could be a win-win solution. It'd be helpful for our merchants to address what was the genesis of this particular proposal, but it also could enhance the ability for people to find parking for the downtown area when they sometimes have trouble now.
Okay. Terry, did you want to add anything?
I would like to add 2 things.
Okay.
In the first paragraph, there is one minor mistake. In the post office lot and the train station lot, shopper parking is now limited to 2 hours.
Oh, it's 2 hours, okay.
Yeah, we didn't go check ahead of time. I did on my way down tonight and realized that. And I guess the other thing is that the planning board would be happy to have people work with the appropriate people on ways to enforce parking, both in the parking lots and street parking. I know our chairman has done some research on handheld devices that make it much easier to track how long somebody's parked and then spit out a ticket, sort of like the things that the UPS guys carry. And there are other things like that, not hideously expensive, that could make the process of enforcement easier. So
Okay. Thank you.
Can I get a copy of this proposal? I haven't seen this. This is the first I'm hearing about this.
Anthony, you have the letter, you have a copy?
Here.
We'd obviously like to take a look at it and see what you
Sure. That has my notes on it.
No, I can get another copy from Anthony.
That's all right. I've got it.
So I think one thing is to both Ms. Thompson's point and for the chief as well. We're not talking about changing, I think, the hours of parking for the existing places where it's 2 hours in some places, 20 minutes in others. It's 4 hours, I think, was what we talked about for the train station parking lot.
It's currently signed as 2 for the shopper parking.
The shopper parking.
It's 3.
Oh, it's 3?
The train station is 3.
Yeah, so we're not talking. We're not talking about.
Library's 4.
Right. Library's 4. Ammerman lot would be 4. But we're not talking about changing anything. The only thing we would establish with this process would be 4 hours in the Ammerman parking lot.
Right.
Everything else stays the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I
I
bring
realize.
up something related to parking then?
Okay.
Unrelated to this, but related to parking, or should I save that for open discussion?
Jeff.
What?
It's related to parking, it's an idea to expand our
I think that's
parking.
for executive.
No, yeah,
Is
okay.
that for executive?
Well, I don't know, that's a question, should I save it?
Save it, okay.
But then what's the next step
Jeff-
on this? I
wait,
guess?
Jeff had
I was just
something.
gonna ask, would you like an ordinance? We'd have to change it by ordinance to allow 4-hour free parking in Hamilton lot.
We need to do it by ordinance?
Yeah.
I think we should do
Be a
this.
simple
I think this is a good plan.
Yeah,
I don't know if other
okay.
people, what they think.
We good?
Yeah,
We do an
so
ordinance?
yes,
And
great.
then we have to do a resolution to lower the decal fee.
Uh-huh.
That can be by
Yeah,
resolution,
that's resolution.
but ordinance would be changing the,
Right.
Ammerman.
The Ammerman.
Do one paragraph.
okay.
Okay.
Jeff, you wanted to say something?
All I wanted to say is, did I miss 10C?
No, I was just gonna say I have to go back there. Sorry, I realized I didn't do that one.
I have one other question about the parking. The 2 hours at the post office. Do you think we should, for uniformity, like just make all the shopper parking 4 hours? So in other words, instead of 3 at the train, 2 at the post office and 4 at Ammerman.
I think 4's too long at the post office, honestly, but,
Well, I would say that, except that, you know, if you're gonna go to a class and then maybe eat, that's an hour and a half, 2 hours to clean yourself up, and then go have lunch. It's 4 hours, and I know that, you know, I don't know.
well, then you go to the Ammerman lot and walk across.
Well, I'm just thinking like.
Or the
there is
library lot, yeah.
Movie and dinner, you know, that there is things that can go on
Well,
for more than 2 hours, and I don't know if we want to.
The parking restrictions don't.
Apply, do they apply
don't
after 7?
6, do they, or
Yeah.
Or 7?
Well, no, it depends on the ordinance, but for the most part, no, most of the time parking is done by 6 p.m.
Yeah,
7.
so if you're dinner and a movie, you're good.
But like a Saturday morning, a class at an exercise place, which is 90 minutes, and then go get coffee. You might be pushing the 2 hours. Just a thought, I don't know. I mean,
But, yeah.
I like that we're building in the 6-month revisiting, and maybe it'll come up at, you know.
Yeah, it's
in
just
that
then there's, no, you know, no spots for the people using the post office who are coming and going.
There's a lot of different parking ordinances. There's 30-minute spots, there's 2-hour spots, there's 3-hour spots, there's decal spots, there's commuter spots, there's 4-hour spots. You know, but if you make a change to one, there can be a cascading effect to some of the other ones. And I don't think that we've looked at this to see what impact that might have on all the other ones.
Yeah, and you'd really have to
Especially if
study.
we start talking about downtown, like the library and the train station and things like that.
Well, I think you'd really have to study the usage too. You know, you'd have to observe it for a while and look at the data and how many people are coming and going and how often before we randomly change it.
One of the things that's happening is, you know, the new parking kiosk is going in.
Right.
So for a long time, for almost 2 years, we haven't been able to enforce the parking regulations in the train station. A lot
Right.
of people have been parking there longer than they should, but for the most part, that lot has been underutilized. Now that the kiosk is going to be back in place, that's going to be able to open up a lot of free parking for anybody who's going to determine how long they want to park there, as long as you're not in a permitted zone. So they'll be able to pay, you know, by time.
Right.
So that should help free up some space downtown as well.
Yeah.
Instead of people just parking all day there, a lot of employees from some of the businesses have been parking there
Because they don't have to pay, right, right now. Okay.
So there's just a lot of things to consider, I think, before you put an ordinance in. And if you wanted to move ahead with something just with the Ammerman lot,
Yeah, that's
that
what this
would probably be, you
Yeah.
know, the easiest thing to do, but there are, I'm not sure what you want to do there, because there are some designated shopper parking areas, and then there are other decal areas. If you just talk about making the whole lot, like the library decal or 4 hour,
Yes.
So it would,
that's like a no-brainer.
that's
Yeah.
pretty easy, I think.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have a decal, you're there more than 4 hours.
That's,
Right.
it works well in the library, I think, very well.
Yeah.
Actually works very well.
That's what we want
Keeps
to
the
do.
commuters and the long-term parkers out of there, and it gives people a place to park if they need to be there for a little bit longer.
So Christine, I would propose we make this one change and then we see what the effect is. And the 6-month point gives us the ability to take a look back and say, well, we did this one thing now, you know, are there 2 or 3 other tweaks that we can make to kind of just make it work best for everybody then?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Can you wait till the open session? Okay, we're almost there.
I just want to say one more thing, though. The library lot is seeing a great deal more of full-day parking, illegal full-day parking.
Really?
Yes.
What happens every spring with high school students?
No,
Yeah.
this has been happening since January.
Who do you think they are?
I think they're commuters.
Oh, and then they walk
Yeah,
down
we
to the
could-
train station?
That's easily.
Okay,
checked.
we'll check that. I have to go back to 10C. I'm sorry, we skipped over that because we kind of talked about it earlier when Mr. Clancy was here. We talked about what we wanted to do with this is send this to the planning board to review that ordinance and see if they agree with us that it's out of date. Are we good with that, or is that?
I think so, yeah.
Yes? Anyone not okay with that? Does the planning board want it? You're getting it.
We're getting it.
Okay.
I knew that.
Yeah, okay,
I see the point that this is separate from the other issue, but
yeah.
I think we have to make sure we try and be as consistent as possible with whatever our decisions are.
Right.
Well, this is really a permitted use though at the present time, it's just a question of whether you can charge.
Whether you can charge or not.
It's distinguishable.
Okay.
Yeah, they can already have people there, they just aren't supposed to charge them, so. Okay, so that was 10C, sorry about that.
So what's the process to get this to the planning board then? Is it some formal letter, Jack, or is it something that I would write, or?
Well, you can, it's usually the clerks that are going to file.
Yeah, Anthony will do it, right? You notify the planning board. Okay, these other, to F and G, I think that's you, Jack?
Yes, and they can be handled together. This is a request from CGP&H, our Mount Laurel consultants, to start on these two programs, both of which are part of our court-approved housing element fair share plan, as well as the spending plan. The housing rehab program, the spending plan allocates $338,000 to fund 13 units of $26,000 each. And that's not meant to cover the entire cost of the rehab, but it's meant to certainly assist the homeowner. And those figures come from the old code regulations, $26,000 per unit. And every housing element has to have a fair share plan, has to have a rehab component. So that's part of it.
Okay.
Similarly, the affordability assistance program, which covers a number of things, it's also a mandated part of the housing element fair share plan. An example would be down payment closing cost assistance, so people can buy affordable units. And there's $300,000 budgeted in the court-approved housing element, or spending plan, I should say. Some of the others are first month's rent is paid by it, but there are various things that are all set forth in the spending plan. And as I said, the CGP&H has just asked for authorization to proceed on those two programs. The money's already in the affordable housing trust fund.
Okay, so do we have to do
any?
any? We don't have to do anything.
I just wanted to run it by you before we started.
Okay, if it's mandated. Mayor's update, I just had a couple of things that I've done since the last meeting. We did have a meeting with the garden people that want to do a garden at the entrance to the Kiwanis Playground, and that's tied in with the mayor's Monarch Butterfly Pledge, so that there's a checklist of things to do to help encourage monarch butterflies to come to Bernardsville, part of which is some of the plantings they'll be doing there. So Doug was helpful in getting us started on that process. And then I think we had said, did we set a date? We did, for having a grand opening. I forget what it was. Do you remember what the date was?
For the new playground?
Yeah, we were going to have a ceremony. Was it?
Did we set a fund date?
I thought I did. I thought it was like June 1st. June 1st was the opening party, yeah.
Is that a Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday. So mark your calendars for June 1st. Housing committee we talked about the fireman's dinner, which was really nice. Our wellness group met again, and we have a flyer. Thank you, Olivia Manning, for this beautiful flyer that we'll put on the website for our kickoff program, the recovering couch potato program that'll be here on April 6th. So that'll be on our website. And also for the New Jersey Local Government Week, I put this on the website or on the Facebook page, that we're having a What Makes Bernardsville Special photo contest for people to post pictures of photos that exemplify what's best about living in Bernardsville. So we'll be doing that for that week as well. I went to the chamber meeting. They're really kicking up this year. It's nice to see they have some new officers, and they had a great speaker. So they're up and running for this year. I did update them on the presentation that the Downtown Development Committee gave to us. Talked to them about the sign ordinance, if they had anybody that wanted to help. And I also told them about the Somerset County Business Partnership that will be having the May 30th networking meeting. And what else do we do? Senior wellness, I think that's it, that's enough. And I will be going to Trenton with John and Doug to meet with the DEP. I can't wait. So that's what, Wednesday, right? Yeah. All right. Do we have any correspondence?
Little League, right?
The Little League, right. We have to do the Little League. For opening day for the parade, which is April 6th, which they do every year. Have they got, the police have seen the route, and you guys are?
It's the same.
It's the same they always do? Maple Street to Liberty and Pine Street?
For the parade?
For the baseball?
Yeah, that's not a problem. We've already talked about that. We'll have an extra officer on that day. It's a Saturday morning.
Okay.
That's a relatively quick parade as far as the street closure goes.
Uh-huh.
We've done in an hour or so. By the time they muster in and walk down the street, so very quickly.
And you have all their insurance and all that's done, so
Harmless insurance, all that.
anything else we have to do, we're good.
Just kind of consent. By motion.
By motion, okay, we have a motion to approve?
Move. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And now, open session. Anything left that anyone wants to say? Jeff? Melanie?
I just had a quick question about the affordable housing. I thought all the affordable housing, I remember the last time you were here when all the builders were coming in and giving their pitches, I thought they were all rentals. They're not? You can buy them? Some of them?
No, some of the other components, is a market to affordable program, I think, which is 3 units, which entails the borough buying a property, fixing it up, and then selling it for a price restricted, or income restricted buyer at a restricted price. And in that case, they could assist the buyer. But yeah, all the scattered site ones are rental units.
So everything we talked about before is rental. These two things that we talked about tonight are in addition to those things.
And that's an existing home.
So that's a house that you would buy, fix it up, and then make it affordable housing?
A one-family,
Right.
right? So if it's a one-family home, you fix it up and then you
And it becomes affordable
make it
housing.
affordable for somebody to buy.
Just to clarify, Jack, that's not us buying it. Somebody else buys it. We have this assistance program
The
that helps
developer
them.
buys it, right.
Right, so somebody else buys it. We don't buy
So
it.
the town's not, okay.
How many credits do you get for that unit, Jeff?
One for each.
One.
Right, but there are only 3 we're talking about, townwide.
And is that part of the settlement?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually a fairly useful tool because you're not creating any new revenue.
Right, right.
Yeah, and then you're fixing up something that's an eyesore.
I thought you were talking about the other units going in.
They're all selling very confusing.
Single family?
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
had a new different comment. When you're talking about the parking lots, I know a couple of years ago we discussed hiring a part-time dedicated person for enforcement of our parking regulations. I'm not sure if that's up for discussion.
It's already in the budget.
I think it's in the budget,
12 hours
yeah.
a week. Somebody out there 3 days a week, 4 hours at a clip.
Okay.
We have somebody doing that now.
Okay.
The special officer, it's not a parking enforcement officer, it's a special law enforcement officer.
So I guess the question is if there's a relatively affordable technology out there that this person could use that would make their job easier. I don't know.
already have the automated ticket machines in the cars that they're using. And the other advantage of having an officer out there as opposed to a parking enforcement officer is they can write other violations while they're out there as well. They can enforce other traffic laws
That's
in the
true.
downtown area while
Yeah.
they're there. The enforcement officer can't do that.
Anybody else from the public? Yes, Terry.
This, maybe it's just my ears, but when you were doing your resolutions, I heard you ask for 61 through 79,
Did I say it
and
wrong?
then Tom said 81. Did you skip 80?
That was corrected in including.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
did. We fixed it.
Just didn't want you to be without your Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
we need that. Yes. All right, we'll close the public session. Do we need a executive session, Jack? Yes?
We do.
Okay.
Brief.
Do I have a motion for executive?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
Okay, opposed? No?